All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about connecting the buyer with the seller. And so we talked about how to get hired from a buyer. We talked about how to get hired from a seller. We talked about the conversations to have with them. We talked about the conversations of how to get hired with each of them. And now we're going to talk about a couple things in regards to who you are in the relationship. And then we're going to talk to you about how you actually show homes and write an offer that gets accepted. So if you recall in your licensing school, you may or may not recall this, there was an acronym that your instructor probably used called old car. I used COLAD when I taught, which I have no idea why I use COLAD because that makes no sense. Old car is so much better. COLAD, like seriously? And so old car, this is the description of your fiduciary care as an agent. It is vital that you understand this in your representation. The unfortunate truth is there are so few agents that get this. And the reason why that's unfortunate is because what I've seen time and time and time again is I've seen agents misunderstand their role in the transaction so often, and it always starts with something like this. That other agent was an idiot. They wanted me to they wanted to get us an offer that was $50,000 less than the list price. That perspective as an agent, the one I was just describing, not the guy or gal that gave me the one at 50,000 under, the one that has that perspective, the other agent is not appropriate, because that other agent that's writing that offer for 50 grand under list price is just doing their job. Okay. And so it creates such a gap in between agents and in the transaction from being able to go to closing that it's tough. Okay, so I want you to understand your role in the transaction. You are a fiduciary. What is the definition of fiduciary? You guys, what definition of fiduciary would you guys have? What does that word mean to you?
I do with the best interest of every client.
Best. That's about the best. Thank you, Frank, and nice to see you as well. That's probably about the best definition you could give. I would add to it, which is just a nuance, which is that a fiduciary has the other interest at heart in front of all others, including their own. So in other words, if you look at it, it's as though if you were my fiduciary, you're taking action on my behalf. So you are like my left arm, my right toe, my big toe, my little toe, and every toe in between. You're doing what I'm asking you to do. Now you have, as a part of your fiduciary care, the obligation to be able to be skilled at what you do so that you can give me good advice if I was your client. But ultimately, as an agent, as the agent, what you really ultimately want to do is to be able to make certain that you're giving your client, if I was your client, the information to make a smart decision. Does that make sense to you guys? That doesn't mean that you just do what the client says to do. That means that you skillfully guide and educate your client so that they can make the best decision and that serves them. Then you follow their directions. So that's obedience. Loyalty is putting them in front of all others, including yourself, disclosures, confidentiality, accounting, reasonable care, due diligence, and fair and honest. To understand how you serve a buyer or a seller, you have to go back to the fundamentals, the foundation of what is our job. Our job is to look out for our client. And the client, again, to remind you, is who hires you. And the customer is everybody else. Now that we understand who is a fiduciary, now what we're going to do is we're going to sit there and we're going to set up for these showings. And so this is the way that we're going to be able. So remember, we went through the process of last week of consulting the buyer. We went through the process last week of consulting the seller. We went through the process of here's what happens after you get the listing appointment. Here's what happens after you get the buyer's appointment. Now we're going to go and we're going to get ready to show them some homes. So to be able to show them homes, this is the list of actions that you're going to want to take. You're going to want to make sure you identify all the homes that match your criteria, get the showing instructions. If it's on showing time, contact showing time to be able to coordinate. You're going to want to make sure that you're reviewing the local market data in the areas that you're going to be showing the home. You're going to speak with the listing agents. You're going to identify any short sale REOs. You're going to put together a showing packet for each person who's going to be viewing the homes. And you're going to have that 1 to 5 script that we talked about last week. And then you're going to use that showing packet when you show the homes. So remember, the 1 to 5 script, which I shared with you last week, it's going to go with the remarks of each of the homes. You're going to put this on a clipboard. You're going to go ahead and put their name on here. And then you're going to have them each go ahead and check through on and input the information here. So I'll go back and I'll share with you guys again. The 1 to 5 conversation is one of the conversations that you have with the buyer. Who recalls what the 1 to 5 conversation is? I reviewed that with you last week. But we have the 1 to 5 showing a property with the 1 to 5 script right there. That's one of the conversations you have through the process of getting hired. Okay, so if you recall, we had that video consult. So first was a phone conversation. We're identifying motivation and means. Then we've identified motivation and means. We set up that second conversation with all the decision makers. We have that conversation. We have 10 to 12 homes, and we show them the homes, and we narrow that down to 4 to 6 homes. We have these conversations that are on the screen during that process, and the showing a property of 1 to 5 script is one of those conversations. So to remind you what that conversation is so Johnny, so what I want to make sure, and Johnny, I don't know your wife's name. I'm sorry. What is your wife's name? Heather. Thank you. So Johnny and Heather. So ultimately, the two of you are going to need to make you're going to be making a decision that has to meet both of your needs. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it has to accommodate each of you individually as well as your family. And so what I'm going to ask for the two of you, Johnny and Heather, to do is I'm going to give you a worksheet when we go out and we take a look at the homes. And I'm going to ask for you to go ahead and take your notes while we're in the home. Give that home a nickname, so that you can recall so you can recall it. Because believe it or not, we're going to be looking at a lot of homes, and it's going to get a little bit confusing, as we go through this process. So I'm going to want you to give that name a nickname to that home. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to have you're going to take all the notes, and then you're going to go ahead and rate the home on a scale of 1 to 5. Now, trust me, nobody ever rates it as a 5. Typically, what we find is that people will rate it a 3 or a 4 before they write that offer that's accepted. And if one of you or both of you rate it a 5, assuming that the other doesn't rate it a 1 or a 2, then if that happens, we're going to have to run back to the office and immediately write an offer that gets accepted. Does that make sense to you, Johnny and Heather? All right. Now, one thing I'm going to ask for is if either of you rates it a 1 or a 2, that even if the other one rates it a 5, we just agree right now we're not going to move forward. And I'm also going to ask, now this is a little bit crazy, but maybe you'll enjoy it. I don't know. When we're actually in the home, I'm going to ask for the two of you to not talk to each other until the end of the showing. This will give you a chance to take your own notes. Yes, I get that response sometimes. And so this will give you the chance that you could take your own notes, because again, you're making your individual decisions. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and we'll be able to talk to each other about it. All right, great. Now, that's the conversation we would have had last week. Okay. And we would have had that on the video, would have been a part of it. So now where we are today is now we are getting that 1 to 5 script right here. We're getting that ready for Johnny and Heather.